Hi everyone! How are you all today? I hope all of you are in a good condition. So, in this video, I'm going to discuss the literary elements of a poem from general into specific. Before I start, do you all know what literary elements are in general? Good points. I will add a little more explanation about it. So, literary elements, also known as literary devices, are writing techniques used to create artistic spatial effects that immerse the reader into a narrative, story, or text. They are considered the main tools in a writer's toolbox. All of you should know that it's important to use literary devices in your storytelling to improve your narrating technique. As you become a strong writer and work to continuously improve your writing development, the use of literary elements and other techniques will make you a prolific writer and storyteller. Maybe you have a love-hate relationship with writing. Maybe you are of the mind that the more simplistic writing is, the better it is. Or maybe you just don't want to overcomplicate things. We get it. But if you look at most successful writers, both modern authors and classic authors, you'll find that remarkable writers use literary elements in their work. Besides that, authors use literary devices to enhance their creative expression and to add artistic flair to their writing, which provides an unforgettable reader's experience. To go into a slightly more specific explanation, literary elements relate to figurative language. Do you all know what figurative language is? No one knows? Okay, I'll explain in more detail. So, figurative language uses figures of speech to suggest new pictures or images or to create stronger effect. It is particularly useful in getting a specific message or feeling across. For example, let's say I'm stuck in the desert with a friend because our car broke down. Rather than saying, "It's hot outside, isn't it?" I'd probably say, "It's 1,000,000 degrees outside. What are we going to do?" Of course, it's not literally 1,000,000 degrees outside, but by using figurative language, I have better expressed the dread and urgency of the situation we are in. Figurative language has a fundamental impact on readers by creating new connections between concepts, images, or objects that have little to no original link. Readers discover new insights and see a more vivid or imaginative picture in their heads. Figurative language is also useful in explaining an abstract concept by comparing it to something else that readers can better relate to. it can transform the seemingly ordinary into something significant. That's why authors of all genres employ figures of speech so abundantly. So, that's the meaning of figurative language in general. Did you all catch about what I explained earlier? Okay then, if all of you already understand about that, I will go into a more specific discussion, namely the types of figurative language in poetry. So, there are 16 types of figurative language in poetry, which include synesthesia, personification, metonymy, synecdoche, euphemism, simile, metaphor, onomatopoeia, allusion, symbol, oxymoron, paradox, juxtaposition, antithesis, litosis, and the last one is irony. You all don't need to be surprised to see the many types of figurative language. I will continue to explain it one by one until all of you understand about this. Are you all curious? If yes, watch this video till the end. The first one is synesthesia. In literature, especially in poetry, synesthesia refers to an author's blending of human senses to describe an object. Phrases like a loud dress or a chilly gaze blend our sensory modalities. Examples of synesthesia include Baudelaire's The Ragpicker's Wine, where he writes of the dazzling, deafening debauch, or of bugles. Another example in George Meredith's Modern Love, which is a woman's heart is made to drink the pale drug of silence. Do you get it, guys? Okay then, I will continue to the second figurative language, namely personification. Are you all familiar with this? Oh, nothing familiar. Okay, take it easy. I will explain about it. So, personification is a figure of speech in which the poet describes an abstraction, a thing, or a non-human form as if it was a person. For example, the poem entitled I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. The poet has personified daffodils on the third line of the poem, such as, When all at once I saw a crowd. The crowd shows the number of daffodils. The second example of personification is used on the second stanza as tossing their heads and sprightly dance. It shows that the daffodils are humans that can dance. The third example is on the third stanza, such as in a jocund company. Here, he considered the daffodils as his buoyant company. Up to here, do you understand, everyone? Alright, great. We continue to the next, namely metonymy. So, metonymy is a kind of figurative language that refers to a situation in which one term is substituted for another. The substitution is made because of some pre-existing relationships between the two things. Here is an example of this figurative language. The speaker refers to a draught or drink of vintage. In this line, the word vintage refers to wine, but it also speaks to its age. The use of this phrase is less common today than it might have been when Keats was writing. It would still be considered part of a more elevated way of speaking. Synecdoche is a figure of speech in which a part of something stands for the whole. Here is an example of this figurative language. Two lines here, a face to meet the faces that you meet, and time for all the works and days of hands, represent the people in the speaker's life without talking about them as a whole person. Do you get it, everyone? Okay, good. We move to the euphemism. Euphemism is an indirect expression used to replace that something that is deemed inappropriate or crude. Here is an example of this figurative language. On the fifth line of this excerpt, Lady Macbeth says that King Duncan must be provided for. This is a roundabout, euphemistic way of saying that he needs to be murdered. It is similar to saying that he needs to be taken care of. Next, there are two figurative languages that have something in common, namely simile and metaphor. Simile and metaphor both compare two things, but the only difference between them, if simile compares two things by saying like each other, while metaphor compares two things directly without using like or as. Are you all still excited to follow this lesson until the end? I know that many of you are sleepy, but you all must fight that sleepiness so that you can quickly understand this material. Okay, everyone? Can we continue? Okay, we move to the next, which is about onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is a figure of speech in which the sound of a word imitates its sense. So, poe describes bells which clang, clash, roar, twang, jangle, wrangle, sink, and swell. Such strong descriptions of their ringing serve to evoke feelings of horror, danger, and anger in this dramatic and eerie passage. Do you get it, guys? What? Yes, it is the same as sound imitation, and the sound leads to a certain meaning, like the example I gave earlier. Did you understand? Alright then, the next is allusion. So, allusion is a reference to a person, event, or literary work outside the poem. Allusions are usually implied or indirect, and poems with allusions do not necessarily cite the work or historical event they are referencing. So, here is an example of this figurative language. In this poem, famed American poet Emily Dickinson alludes to Currer Bell, which was the pen name for English author Charlotte Bronte, who is most famous for her novel Jane Eyre. Dickinson also alludes to the English village of Haworth, where Bronte died and was later buried, or laid as the poem states. The quotation marks hint to the reader that these two things, the example, the name, and the place, didn't merely come out of Dickinson's imagination. Still, you'd have to be familiar with Bronte herself to be able to make the connection here. The next one is symbol. What is symbol? Great job! Symbol is a literary device where symbols work to represent ideas. In symbolism, the symbols align with the overall tone and theme of the poem. For example, in the poem of A Red, Red Rose by Robert Burns. When it comes to symbolism, examples in poetry, roses are commonly a symbol of love and romance, while the melody symbolizes the beauty and grace of his lover. Are you still excited until now, everyone? Excited or not, still have to be excited. Okay, everyone, we move to the next, which is oxymoron. Oxymoron is a figure of speech that brings together contradictory words for effect. For example, John Milton describes hell as darkness visible in book Eye of Paradise Lost. The next one is paradox. Paradox is used in literature when a writer brings together contrasting and contradictory elements that reveal a deeper truth. An example, William Wordsworth's paradox. The child is the father of the man may seem nonsense out of context, but upon closer reflection, the reader can conclude that childhood experiences become the basis for the shaping of who we are as adults. So the child, in a sense, fathers the man who he will become. We move to the juxtaposition. It is used when two, or sometimes completely opposite, words are placed near one another, creating a comparison or contrast effect. Okay, here is an example of this figurative language. In these lines, he is recovering from another bout of drinking and looking out of his hovel at the sunrise as it glazed the barnyard mood with red. These burning puddles were reassuring at a time when nothing felt right or good. He knew then that everything was not lost and that he'd be able to make it through his exile. In fact, by the end, in the poem, also due to the sun, he decides that it's time for him to go home. Okay, I'll continue to the next, which is antithesis. What is it? A little closer, but less precise with the meaning. So, antithesis is contrasting or combining two terms, phrases, or clauses with opposite meanings. Here is the example. He presents love alongside hate in addition to good alongside ill. By showing the reader both sides, he is able to emphasize why we love what we love and why we hate what we hate. He goes on, stating that, in contrast, it is a matter of choice whether one hates or loves the things indifferent. So far, is my explanation clear to all of you? Alright, good. Now we move to the litotes. So, litotes is a figure of speech that includes a phrase in which a negative word is used to express something positive. Here is the example. He says that he doesn't want to interfere with the marriage of true minds on the first line. He is telling the listener that he supports marriage between like-minded people. Finally, we come to the last types of figurative languages, namely irony. Irony occurs when an outcome is different than expected. It is possible for one situation to strike one reader as ironic and another not. Let's take a look at an example of situational irony in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's rhyme of The Ancient Mariner. In this long and wonderfully written poem, there are many literary techniques that one could comment on. But the irony is one of the simplest and the most relatable. It presents itself with the ninth stanza of part 2 of the poem, such as water, water everywhere, and all the birds did drink. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. In these lines, Coleridge's speaker is considering their situation and that of their fellow crew members. It is ironic because, very simply, there's a lot of water, but they can't drink it. They are at risk of dehydration and death while surrounded by the ocean. Okay, so those are 16 types of figurative language. Do you think this is too much or not much? Okay, I know you guys must be tired to remember all these types of figurative language, right? I think all of you should fight that tiredness, like you never get tired of loving him. Oh my god, who's that? Forget it. Let's go back to the discussion. Actually, I want to tell all of you that of the 16 types, only 5 are commonly used by writers, such as simile, metaphor, personification, hyperbole, and allusion. Why? Because it belongs to the main branch and most famous writers use this type to express their work. I hope all of you can catch this explanation. Okay, I will go into a deeper and more specific discussion, which is about explanation of the figurative types found in a particular poem. Can any of you guess what poetry I took as an example? Unfortunately, none of your answers are correct. Okay then, if all of you have given up, then the poem that I take as an example is Rondel of Merciless Beauty by Geoffrey Chaucer. Rondel of Merciless Beauty by Geoffrey Chaucer. Your two great eyes will slay me suddenly. Their beauty shakes me, who was once serene. Straight to my heart, the wound is quick and keen. Only your word will heal the injury. To my hurt heart, while yet the wound is clean, your two great eyes will slay me suddenly. Their beauty shakes me, who was once serene. Upon my word, I tell you faithfully, through life and after death, you are my queen. For with my death, the whole truth shall be seen. Your two great eyes will slay me suddenly. Their beauty shakes me, who was once serene. Straight to my heart, the wound is quick and keen. Okay guys, that's all from me. Thank you for your attention and see you! Of the 16 figurative languages, only 5 are included in this sample poem. 5 of them are alliteration, personification, imagery, metaphor, and hyperbole. The first one is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of an initial consonant sound in words that are near each other. It is very popular for a stanza of poetry because repetition can make it easier to remember. For example, there are several lines that are repeated from the beginning of the stanza to the end, such as, "Your two great eyes will slay me suddenly. Their beauty shakes me, who is once serene. And straight to my heart, the wound is quick and keen." The second is personification, which means is the practice of attaching human traits and characteristics to inanimate objects, phenomena, and animals. Abstract nouns and concepts such as nature, pride, and love are personified in the poem. Merciless Beauty goes to show that relationships with beautiful women can cause pain and should be avoided. Pride and love are personified in order to add cruelty to them. A horse cannot be consciously cruel because it lacks a mind, but a human being can. Pride is described as restricting kindness by holding your mercy on a chain, while love is said to hold a prison. Both actions involve bondage and keeping something from being free, a generally cruel action. By personifying the concepts of love and pride, Chaucer stresses how dangerous and evil they can be. And the third figurative language is imagery. Imagery is a vivid and vibrant form of description that appeals to readers' senses and imagination. For example, it's on the third line, like, straight to my heart, the wound is quick and keen. It attracts the reader to imagine as painfully as what it means when the author's love is not reciprocated by the woman he loves. The next one is metaphor, which is a comparison between two things that states one thing is another to help explain an idea or show hidden similarities, as in the ninth line. Through life and after that, you are my queen. It is the same like comparing life and death. The last one is hyperbole. So, hyperbole is a literary device wherein the author uses specific words and phrases that exaggerate and overemphasize the basic crux of the statement in order to produce a grander, more noticeable effect. Chaucer uses hyperbole when he states, "Your two great eyes will slay me suddenly," as well as being an example of personification. Eyes cannot kill. This line exaggerates the woman's beauty. By saying that her eyes kill him, the speaker implies that the woman is overwhelmingly beautiful, her eyes. Literally speaking, one's beauty cannot make another person die. The hyperbole is used to emphasize just how breathtakingly attractive this woman is. The exaggeration also emphasizes her callousness, as it promotes the idea that she is also cruel through her looks. Alright, after I explain at length about this, it's not cool, right, if there are no questions? Okay, prepare yourself all. I will give a random question regarding my previous discussion, which is about the figurative types in the poem Rondel of Merciless Beauty by Geoffrey Chaucer. The first question is, do you all still remember what are the 5 figurative languages contained in the poem Rondel of Merciless Beauty? I will give all of you 10 seconds to answer that question. Time's up. So, what's the answer? Okay, that's the correct answer. The next question is, which line uses the imagery element? I'll give you 10 seconds again to think about that. Time's up. What's the answer? A little closer. Let's remember again. I will add another 5 seconds to get the answer. Okay everyone, the extra time is up. So the correct answer is the imagery element is on the third line, namely, straight to my heart, the wound is quick and keen. We know that the element of imagery is related to one's imagination, so the writer wants to attract the reader's attention to imagine how the pain he feels about unrequited love. Okay, last question. How about the metaphor? Which line uses this element? 10 seconds to all of you. Start thinking from now. Okay, time's up. What's the answer? Okay, good point, great job. So the metaphor element is on the 9th line, through life, and after that, you are my queen. Because it compares two things that states one thing is another to help explain an idea or show hidden similarities, like compare life and death. Alright everyone, it's all over with our discussion today. Thank you all for the fascinating discussion. I apologize if my discussion is boring or cannot be understood clearly by all of you. However, I have tried my best, and I hope my discussion is useful and insightful to all of you. The message I want to convey is that all of you should never get tired of studying as deeply as possible. Don't fill your youth with useless activities. Make a significant change in yourself starting today so you will enjoy the impact in the future. Keep it up for all of us. A bird on the tree is pigeon. Luckily, it is already freed. A student should be diligent and full of spirit to be great. Okay, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a great day, everyone.